My name is Dave Jordan, and I'm a guitar player, songwriter, band leader. I'm also a bass player.
Okay.
And had a band for many years that I was the lead singer, bass player. And my band currently is called the Neighborhood Improvement Association, and we abridge it because it's a lot to put on a marquee. So the NIA, and what it is kind of I call it an umbrella band.
Yeah.
I have lots of different musicians who play with me over the years, and like we were talking off camera.
Sure.
A roster, so to speak. So
yeah.
Got 4 or 5 guys that can come in, play drums, bass, electric guitar, lead guitar, and violin. And I have the first call guys, the guys that do the most gigs with me. But there's a lot. At this point, there's probably over the years I could probably call about 50 different people at this point.
I mean, that's great, and it seems hectic at the same time, but you got a lot of resources. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So where'd you grow up at, man?
I grew up in Mandeville.
Okay.
So I grew up in Mandeville. My dad was when we moved here when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
And my dad was the dean of the graduate school at University of New Orleans.
Okay.
And so I grew up in Mandeville, and I went to UNO for a couple semesters, then LSU. And then I moved back down to New Orleans, and I've been here now for about 30 years.
Gotcha. So Mandeville, and then 8 years old, moved to New Orleans, but then you move out to go to
No, I stayed in Mandeville till high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
I wasn't born here. We moved here to Mandeville when I was 8.
And when did music come into your life?
I mean, really, it church.
Okay.
That's probably where it first started. But I'm the youngest, and my siblings are fairly older than me. Like one's 7 years older, one's 9, one's 10 years older, and so I grew up with them. They were already teenagers by the time I was, 3.
Yeah.
And then so I grew up with, they were already teenagers listening to music. So I grew up with a lot of 70s rock and roll. My sisters were big fans of the Eagles and Jackson Browne and that kind of era of American rock. And my brother was Neil Young and Crazy Horse and Grateful Dead and Crosby, Stills and Nash. Just all that kind of stuff from mid 70s to early 80s. And then I first started really becoming conscious of my own musical taste, so to speak, probably when I was about 10. Which would have been 4th grade. I think that's kind of when it starts for everybody. When you start hearing the stuff you like on the radio. And you know what I mean? And around then, 4th grade, that's kind of when Prince hit, and that's my era.
Okay, so
the Police
coming into the Police. 80s. All right. Yeah. Well, you say that that's usually when it hits for people, but what's funny is there's kind of 2 different paths, and it seems like some recognize their maybe not innate abilities, but as far as musical talent, but their ability to recognize certain things occur to them in music that wouldn't occur to children. In other words, around 10, you start trying to kind of dip your toes in the water of choosing your own identity. So some genres of music become yours, and a generation of sound becomes your own.
That's exactly what I mean.
Sure. But sometimes there are kids that they can hum a tune and it's spot on. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they identify with the keys and things like that. That did anything, I guess I should say, predating that era, the 10-year-old and on era. Did anything occur to you? Were you drawn to any specific instrument or anything of the sort?
No, I mean, I didn't start playing until I was 18. I'm a late bloomer when it comes to actually playing.
Yeah.
But I did some theater stuff in school and at church.
Okay.
We moved away for a couple of years. My dad took sabbatical from UNO, and I went to a really small private school. And so it was so small, basically everyone had to do the play.
Okay.
And I mean, one of the plays we did was like a Rodgers and Hammerstein, like Broadway stuff. This is serious stuff.
Wow, okay.
And, you know, I had to sing a solo, and like, I couldn't sing at all, you know, but from probably about 4th grade on, I did some sort of, you know, theater through church and through school that involved singing.
Okay.
But I didn't start playing an instrument till I was like 18 or so.
By the time that happened, though, I mean, stage fright held no residence in you. Like, you were beyond that, I would imagine.
Yeah, I've never really had a lot of issues with stage fright.
No.
And same thing at the church I went to, you know, sometimes you'd have to get in front of the whole congregation and I did some, you know, stuff involved, and like when I was in junior high, I was in student council.
Yeah.
You know, and so I did some public speaking type stuff from a pretty young age. I don't get nervous. I don't get stage fright, and I don't get nervous, but I do get anxious.
Sure, the butterflies before a gig.
Yeah, like I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get this over with. And
yeah.
I find that in more recent years, besides doing my band and my own shows, I've been on a lot more gigs where I'm like a featured performer.
Mm-hmm.
Like recently, they did a birthday show, Bob Dylan birthday concert, and
okay.
I was one of the guys. I got up and did 2 Bob Dylan songs.
Nice.
And so when I do those types of shows, I find that I get this big kind of adrenaline rush, usually but the song or 2 before mine.
Uh-huh.
And I get a rush, and then it's almost like a sugar drop.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I don't know if I should say this on camera, but it's almost like, you know, when you take mushrooms and you get the yawns?
Okay.
It's kind of like that,
yeah.
You know, like before the mushrooms kick in.
Yeah.
And so, if you keep it on camera, I don't care. But that'll happen to me. So it's weird. I find that when I'm a guest on these events,
uh-huh.
I actually have more of an anxiety thing than when I have to do an entire show.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And maybe that's because when we do entire shows, we sound check. And,
okay.
you know, we have already gone through a preparation, whereas
sure.
these shows, you're walking on, plugging in, hitting, walking off.
Yep.
You don't have a whole lot of time to think about it.
Yeah.
You just got to go, you know?
Yeah, sure. Now, coming into the 80s, a lot of synth sounds, but coming up under your siblings, a lot of natural instruments mm-hmm. and singer-songwriter songs, I guess.
Yeah.
Singer-songwriter vibes.
That era of
I hate the word vibes, but anyway, you know, the singer-songwriter preceded the electronic 80s and also the 70s rock. How do you just adopt that? I mean, is it that it was so different from everything else that made it wonderment to you, or, you know, because it's not what you do now. I mean, we're going to discuss what kind of music you play now, but it's definitely not Prince. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I have covered Prince.
Okay, but it would be in a style of your own. Do you know what I'm saying?
What I find about a lot of that 80s stuff, which I really ran far away from for a long time, but a lot of those songs just have great melodies.
Yeah, you're not lying.
You know, and the melodies, you know, I say it all the time. People don't leave a concert humming a guitar solo. You know, they say that guitar player's badass,
right?
And that's cool, you know. But people leave humming a melody, or they leave singing the lyric.
Sure,
that's the stuff that hooks, you know. Yeah. And so when I look back on those '80s songs, like even some of the stuff that I hated, but now I look back on it like, wow, that's got a really good hook. Like, you know, like I don't even know what it is. Like the. Not Duran Duran's actually a badass band, but flock of seagulls,
Sure.
Whatever.
Yeah. And
obviously Prince is incredible on every level, and Michael Jackson, it was amazing. And Michael Jackson also had the benefit of having Quincy Jones produce his stuff. Quincy's the greatest ever, maybe,
Yeah.
And so, but I mean, I think about a song like "Borderline" by Madonna. That's a great song.
Yeah.
It's a great, that song holds up.
Honestly, Dave, I might be speaking too soon because, I mean, you think about the complexity of these melodies that you're talking about was still there. The singer-songwriter was still there. I really shouldn't even say that. Loggins and Messina, or Hall and Oates, Michael McDonald, the Doobie Brothers, all of these, fantastic bands with truly things you could walk away humming. So I guess it just transformed. I guess the instruments changed, but the sentiment remained the same.
The technology shifts, and that always happens, even there's stuff now that like my son might listen to that I have no interest in listening to, and the technology is completely different, but a good melody is a good melody. It doesn't really matter, you know. I mean, I listen to a lot these days. I've been listening to a lot of Casey Musgraves. Like, I think she's a fantastic writer. And she isn't reinventing the wheel, but it's good stuff.
Sure.
And so, when it breaks down to the bare bones of the music, that's really always what it comes back to.
Sure.
Good melody, good hook, good beat, and and if you got good players, you're going to put out something good.
So at 18, what do you choose? You choose guitar?
Acoustic
bass?
guitar.
Okay, acoustic guitar.
Mostly because a lot of my friends I grew up with played guitar.
Okay.
And we would just want to sit around and play, probably because we wanted to impress girls.
Sure.
And at that point, I was getting real into stuff like Dylan. I've always written poetry since I was like 10 years old.
Okay.
So I'm a writer first.
Okay.
And my dad was in academia, but he wrote like 35 books.
Wow.
My grandfather was a newspaper editor. So that's my side of it. The music is a more learned thing for me than the lyrics and that part of it. Yeah, I'm a words guy.
Pretty much came natural. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you acoustic guitar, and how come at 18 the light switch comes on? It seems like you would have been looking for a vessel. Were you exposing the things that you were writing earlier, like predating playing music? Would you get up and speak, or did it just stay in a diary type of thing?
No, I mean I was actually published in some of that stuff. Like for, the Mandeville High would have their whatever, I don't even know what they were called. They weren't the yearbooks, but they were some sort of journalistic publication thing,
Okay.
And they did one for the parish for all the schools, and I was one of the ones that got published in that. And I just because my friends were playing guitar, and I just decided. I mean, from day one, I wrote my own songs. I mean, day one. I mean, I'm still fairly terrible at learning other people's music. It's not my strong point,
Yeah.
But to the point that I don't even try to make it my strong point. If I'm going to, one of my kind of rules for myself, if I'm going to cover a song or another artist, is I have to believe that the audience would believe that I wrote it.
So you have to play it that well, is what you're saying?
Well, I have to voice it myself.
Okay, so make it your own then.
Make it my own.
Gotcha.
So the audience would be like, oh, even, it's happened many times where people are like, oh, I thought you wrote that song.
Didn't realize.
Yeah, no,
okay.
John Prine wrote that song, or somebody,
Yeah.
And that's just, it's got to feel natural to me. It's really difficult for me to just learn a cover. And I don't really want to either. So
it sounds more like a benefit than a deficit. I mean, who wants to be the cover guy all his life?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's place for that.
Yeah.
I mean, and some guys are phenomenal at it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it argued. I've heard it argued well that it takes some of the best musicians to be able to pull off being a cover band. And man, his name is going to come to me. It was Chris LeBlanc. That's who I was interviewing.
I know Chris.
Oh, he drew a hard line in the sand, and it was so funny to me because he brought up a great point, and I was kind of harping on it, and he's like, yeah. He said 3, and I can only remember 2, but he was like, yeah. 3 of the greatest fucking bands of all time were cover bands: the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, and he's, you know, naming I think maybe Zeppelin or somebody.
Yeah.
But I mean, he had a great point, you know.
Well,
And,
we all start somewhere.
yeah,
You know?
but I mean, to be able to pull it off and for the audience to identify it with it, recognize it, and not hate you for doing whatever you just did to that song,
Yeah,
you
right.
know, does so many things for a musician, including kind of warming up the audience to reviewing some music that's original,
Yeah.
you know, their own, you know. But you got to be good, like he said. You know?
The great New Orleans drummer, Johnny Vidakovich, he said to me one time, I think it was the second year of Bayou Boogaloo that they have over here, so about 20 years ago. Johnny, his Astro Project, the band he was in, was coming on after us, and he caught the second half of our set, and he said to me, he's like, Dave, you guys got a really original sound. And I was like, well, thank you. You know, that's a big compliment, especially coming from someone as esteemed as Johnny.
Sure.
And he said, you know, he said, Dave, I got a theory that you basically spend your first 7 years kind of emulating your influences, and then the next 7 years running away from your influences, and then after 14 years, you kind of got your own sound.
Okay.
And I looked at Johnny, and I'm like, Johnny, this band's been together for 14 years.
Yeah,
like,
well,
Johnny called it like on the spot.
yeah.
You know, like,
and you yourself earlier in this interview said you spent a great deal of time running away from the certain sound that you were kind of introduced to and called your own in the beginning.
yeah. You know, you take it all in, and I mean, as a songwriter, period, any songwriter, we're digesting our influences and
Sure.
you know, mixing it all up and making, you know, putting a different recipe together.
Sure.
You know, basically.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, we're all sponges, dude, and whatever drips
Yeah.
out the bottom is our, you know.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
yeah. Yeah. And you go through courses of life that, you know, different things are influencing you more, and you know, a lot of people don't want, you know, their musicians or their artists that they love to change.
Yeah.
You know, but we're supposed to.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's life. We're supposed to grow, and we're supposed to become interested in other things and do different things. And you know, I think, you know, I mean, we haven't got to this yet, but when I was 19, I'd been playing acoustic guitar for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
You know, me and my friends wanted to start a band. We didn't have a bass player, so I started playing bass. And then right then I saw George Porter from the Meters,
Okay.
Phil Lesh from the Grateful Dead, and Dave Schools from Widespread Panic. Three phenomenally influential, great bass players. And I said, well, I want to play bass.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I switched. I went from being acoustic guitar, you know, and started playing bass, and then I had that band for 15 years. That was the one Johnny was talking about. And we were a New Orleans funk band where I was the lead singer, bass player.
Okay.
And our stuff, very Meters-esque, but we would kind of mix the Meters with stuff like the Allman Brothers or the Dead, or some, you know, kind of like if you took the Meters and Sly Stone and mixed it with the Allman Brothers and the Dead.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that kind of, and I mean, that's kind of become a real blueprint almost at this point for what like a lot of the jam band world is.
Sure.
You know, it wasn't so much back then, but that's, you know, kind of a natural way for it to go.
Yeah.
But, you know, I did that for a long time, and then about 15 years ago, one of the guys in the band passed away, and it just got to the point that the band had kind of run its course. And I switched instruments, switched styles of music, and started over. And at that point, I was listening to very different music than I was listening to 15 years prior.
Yeah.
And to this day, I still have people like, "Are you ever going to put, you know, your old band back together?" They're you know, they're sentimental about it. They want to see it. But I'm like, you know, one of the guys is dead. You know?
Yeah. I was gonna ask.
It's not
I mean,
coming back. You know.
Yeah, it's not that I want to pry, but I mean, there's different directions that things can go in once that happens, because it happens often.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the tribe is the chain is broken at some point, you know, and you don't. I'm not sure how to feel about it. Do you keep it going, putting it back together and mending it, or out of respect do you not? Like, I guess it just goes with each group of people.
And besides him passing away, you know, we'd had guys come in the band and then leave the band, and that happened over many years. And it got to a point where it's like, this isn't even the same band anymore.
Right.
You know, like, why are we calling it this? And, you know, to me, it just, I think the term farce is too strong. It's not a farce, but it's just, we're not it anymore. So why are we keep trying to present something that isn't really what it was?
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, right at that same time in my life, I got divorced. So I went through massive changes.
Sure.
And, you know, and I kind of, you know, right now in my life, I feel like that another kind of shift is happening like that, you know. And part of that shift is that I'm interested in revisiting some of the stuff I did back then and integrating it more into what I do now.
It's so incredibly different from what you do now. I mean, I wouldn't hear the funk, you know. I wouldn't think of an electric bass playing funk man, you know. So I mean, I understand what you're saying. That's hard to address as well, because do you up and start a different band, which a lot of people will do, or do you? Or just not even a different band, but maybe it could be your solo career, something outside of the unit you have created today.
One of the problems that I have with my current band is that we play a bunch of different styles of music. So if you watch one of our things on YouTube, I mean, I've had people think we're a country band. We're not a country band.
Right.
And we play John Prine songs, but John Prine isn't really traditional country music either. You know, but I have, you know, it's acoustic instruments. It's a fiddle and an acoustic guitar, two of the main instruments in the band.
Yeah.
So people think country music, you know.
That's a hard region to navigate, because you can go from country to folk to Americana.
It's all over the place.
And they're all shades of each other.
Yeah.
And then when you introduce Southern rock, it's like, that's rock and roll pulling from all of those things down south, and it's like, how do you differentiate
country
times,
blues?
You know? Yeah,
you know, it's all right there. And so, you know, you might watch another video on YouTube, and we're playing something that's more rock or Southern rock type thing.
Yeah.
You might watch another one, and it's me and just the violin player. It's songwriter stuff. So, it's a terribly difficult thing to market.
Right. What do you do with this?
Really, you know. But musically, I am all those things. Those are all the influences that I've had that they're real influences on me, and I've got to work with some, you know, the really the greatest artists. Some of them are the best artists in America ever. You know, like I mean, I've got to record with Art Neville and George Porter, and I've done a bunch of records with Anders Osborne, and you know. I'm not going to just name drop, but
sure.
but I've worked with a broad spectrum of artists, and so all of those influences are real to me. And one of the bands that I loosely base my band on is the Jerry Garcia band.
Okay.
And we don't sound anything like Jerry Garcia. I mean, Jerry Garcia's style of guitar is Jerry Garcia. It's very unique. It's, you know, certain guitarists, him, Santana, you know, you can name a few more, you can tell within 2 or 3 notes who the guitarist is.
Yeah.
You know? So we don't sound like that at all. But what Garcia did with his solo band was he basically did 100 years or so of American music. He would do a Leadbelly song, you know, and Leadbelly started, you know, late 1890s or so, you know?
Yeah.
But he would do Leadbelly. And then he might do a Alan Toussaint song, and then he might do a Bill Monroe bluegrass song, and then he might do a Motown song, then he might do a Miles Davis song, you know. And that's just the American part. He'd cover the Stones, he'd cover the Beatles, he'd cover Jimmy Cliff.
Yeah,
you know. It's a really difficult proposition as a band to be able to jump genres and still come across as genuine.
Well, I guess because initially you come up within a genre as, this is my contribution to this genre, and it kind of becomes part of a band's identity early on. And like you were saying now, you're hard to market, and that would be a consequence of versatility, which is actually an asset. So I mean, it's like it's a double-edged sword.
I like that consequence of versatility. That's
right.
a good
I
line.
mean, you pay for it, right?
Yeah.
You know. But at the end of the day, everything you're doing is for the art, and I would assume, and not for commercial success. You know, I don't see you on Coca-Cola commercials, so I'm just gonna.
I think my bank account has proven that.
So 19, you switched to bass. Is that what you were saying? And are you kind of forming an identity as a musician at that point? Because I feel like
at that point I became a massive meters freak.
Okay.
And I'm still a massive meters freak.
Well, the reason I ask is because you marked it as sort of an earmark in your timeline where you drastically switched lanes.
Some of it was kind of drastic, but you know, I didn't feel like it was that big of a jump.
Okay.
The biggest part of the jump was getting really into the meters, but you know, in the early 90s, this would have been in 91, you know, all those meters records were out of print.
Yep.
You know, nobody knew who they were, really. Maybe like, you know, an older, maybe 2 generations older than me in New Orleans, you know, knew them from when they saw them in the 70s.
Sure.
But the 80s, they were non-existent. You know, Art went and made the Neville Brothers, and the meters kind of became unknown, you know, for a solid decade or so. And then I saw George play, and then the meters regrouped, and I just became a fanatic about the meters. And if anything, in the 90s, in that kind of era of it, part of my identity became being like the guy who knew the shit about the meters, you know, like, because nobody else did. And I mean, and all the people that, like, when we used to go see George Porter when he was with the Running Partners, when they were first, you know, I think they started in '87 or '88, and in the early '90s they were pretty much unknown. There was, you know, 30 to 50 fans, you know, 50 at most. But like every time they play Baton Rouge, and we were up at LSU, this group went. You know, it was like our private thing. You know, it was like. And I think, and I mean, to this day, a lot of us have a real bond over that. And some of these people are musicians, and some of them are just friends, old friends. But you know, we really, that whole time in the mid '90s in New Orleans, with, you know, Galactic starting up, and you had bands like Iris May Tango and all that. You know, it was a really cool. Now I was in Baton, I was at LSU, but I was coming to New Orleans all the time. But I wasn't as involved in. They had their own scene down on Frenchman Street going on. Yeah, I was more of. I wasn't as involved with them. You know, I knew a few of the guys in some of those bands, but I wasn't really part of that scene. I was more peripheral. Yeah, but we were kind of doing the same thing up the road in Baton Rouge. You know, but it really felt like we had like our own world, our own clique, our own. We discovered this gem that, you know, nobody else had. You know. Well,
we were kicking around the idea, the concept about, you know, finding your identity, and maybe one of the most influential things you can do in that process is to find your tribe. Yeah. When you were,
I mean, that goes back to what you said about being 10 years old.
Sure.
And, you know, you get into music.
Well, see, there's also this underlying theme where, you know, as a child, you're trying to figure out who you are as a person. But then when you pick up an instrument, you have to figure out who you are as a musician, because that can be really confusing. I could love rap music, but not play anything but metal because it just comes out of me. Yeah. So then I feel this sort of bifurcation in my life to where it's like, which direction who am I? Yeah. It poses more questions sometimes. So when it comes to, and I didn't mean to make it sound like you shifted who you were between 18 and 19, but as far as what you were projecting, you sort of switched lanes. You know, there was a definitive line there, you know?
I mean, I definitely became the meters freak. Yeah. No doubt.
And was this in part at least due to
and I was a deadhead too. You know? Okay.
Yeah, because you mentioned Jerry Garcia a bunch. Was any of this in part due to the fact that it was local? Did the locally generated sounds and musics and themes
big time
play a role? Okay.
Big time. I mean, one of the things, like the first time I saw the Meters, I guess probably would have been 91 at Tips, maybe Halloween. Around then, back then the Meters would play once or twice a year. When they would have the reunions, they would do a Mardi Gras show and Halloween pretty much.
Yeah.
You know, growing up as a kid going to Mardi Gras, you know, you'd hear Hey Pocky Way, or you'd hear Big Chief, or you'd go to the Mardi Gras and, you know, Professor Longhair. But, you know, WWOZ didn't exist when we were kids.
Yeah.
You know, these songs weren't ever played on the radio except during Mardi Gras.
It's true.
You know, and so it was almost like, you know, wait, actual people play these songs? You know, like we can go see the actual people who wrote these songs, and Earl
clips.
King, you know, and so that was, you know, to your question, the local aspect of it was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, whoa, this is like the songs of our childhood, and we didn't even know they were the songs of our childhood.
Sure.
You know, and then, you know, for me, getting to meet those people and then get to play music with them as I grew up and came up the ranks, or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
You know, it's just full circle. You know?
Yeah, that occurs to me, and I think that I guess watching it happen up close, or putting two and two together and realizing that not only does it come from here specifically, but there's the guy that can do it, and you're standing right in front of him. It kind of places a watermark of or a benchmark. Like coming into this, you feel as though you really have to step up to the plate and not just mess around, because don't find yourself in their circle unless you really mean it, you know?
Yeah.
There is some sort of pride that comes along with it too, I'm sure. What did you do?
I mean, the baseline of New Orleans music, proficiency and talent is so high.
Yeah.
I mean, just the baseline of it. Sure. I mean, there are great musicians in Nashville. There are great musicians in Austin. There are great musicians in LA and New York. There are great musicians all over the place.
Sure.
You know, but as a community, the baseline here, and it comes from childhood. I mean, it's, you know, we can go have brunch at a Chafalaya and Johnny Vodakovich might be playing. And,
sure.
You know, bring Johnny up again.
Yeah.
You know, like the Grammy-winning jazz artists are playing brunch. You know, where does that happen? You know, like, you know, and
we do take it for granted.
Yeah, and I mean, I've thought about, you know, I grew up on the North Shore, and I've thought about moving back there before. But one of the main reasons that I'm not in any hurry to move to the North Shore, even though, like, bang for my buck, I know what I can get.
Yeah.
You know, more of a house and some property than I can get here. One of the main reasons is that I can go see George Porter on a Monday night at the Maple Leaf. Mm-hmm. If I'm sitting around on Monday and I can be at the Leaf in 10 minutes, go catch George for an hour and come home.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you get to do that?
I don't know, man.
I mean, nowhere.
No.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
You're nowhere.
Yeah, you're right.
Every Monday night.
Yeah.
You know, it's insane. You know? And it's also a good way to keep yourself humble and in check as a musician as you navigate the highs and lows of success, because you're going to have both. You know?
Sure.
And what's successful to me, like if Britney Spears puts out an album right now and only sells like 1 million copies, that's a failure to her. You know what I mean? So the successes are, the highs and lows are different for everybody. But, you know, when you go on a Monday night and George is playing and there's, you know, a slow night, there might be 50 people in the room, that puts you in check. I mean, this is one of the greatest living musicians.
I find it hard to believe. I find it hard to believe. You know? It's like aliens landed in front of him. Like, are you serious now? Is this really happening right now?
George is 78, and he's getting better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. You know, he's already been the benchmark.
Well, look, we talk about New Orleans centric or localized, at least Baton Rouge, New Orleans, across Louisiana. This sound that you could be, you know, one of the, mathematically the best. You could be a Jaco Pastorius, and if I can't make a stinky face when you're playing funk on a bass, then you're just not going to do it for these cats. So I mean, our bar is high. So coming into it, and you don't get butterflies. That's something, you know.
And, and that bar is always there, you know. I mean, it's still there. And George's still playing. Anders is a great guitar player and great songwriter. I mean, you know. these are, you know, there's a lot to live up to. Just to be in on the field. Yeah. Just to be in the game.
But so, like, for anybody that's watching and listening that's not from here, we've really set the stage for what you're coming into. But we're going to go back to 19 because you're entering this cosmos, if you will, and you have to kind of make your own lane. So what do you do? What's the setup at 19? What are you doing? Well, who are you with?
At 19, it was you know, mixing the Dead and the Meters. Okay. And the Allman Brothers, you know, mixing the jam bandy stuff with the funk stuff. And, you know, there weren't really people doing that at that point. And that's kind of where we caught, you know, where we felt we had an identity. You know, that's I don't want to say an originality because it's not necessarily original, but that's kind of where we could find our identity, and it gave us room to, you know, we rehearsed a lot, and it back then. I mean, I had a house with another two of the guys in the band, and the living room was our jam room. And all the neighborhood kids. You know, we would rehearse 5-6 days a week. And the neighborhood kids would come and hang out outside our house and listen to us jam. And
sound like the Dead already.
Yeah, smoking weed. And you know, there was a guy who was kind of a bum. We had a screened-in front porch with a lazy boy on it. And sometimes we'd come home and he'd be sitting on the porch, and he was like, I think Rayful Neal was his uncle or something. This is Baton Rouge. So the Neal family is I mean, they're huge. They're like the Nevilles and the Marcelluses down here. Okay. Rayful, Kenny, there's a whole line of them. And he was a harmonica player, and you know, he heard our harmonica player playing one day, and he just shows up at the house, and just some guy. I mean, we lived in a pretty not safe part of town. Okay. And he was one of the guys from the hood, you know, and we'd show up, he'd be on the porch, y'all jamming today, you know, like that kind of stuff. And our house became a hub of that. And I always believed in that. I mean, I really, as a Deadhead, I believed in the, you know, creating the family community around the band. Sure. Which, you know, is a lot harder to do than you think. Yeah. And, but we really had a lot of time, like, we were given a good incubator. We were given we had the space and the time to rehearse and to become better at our instruments. And one of the coolest things about the New Orleans scene, and the Louisiana scene, because it's true in Lafayette too, with Cajun music and Zydeco music, is that the elders want to share with you. It's not that there's not some level of competition. There is. I mean, we all got egos, you know, and you know, sometimes we get bummed out. Oh, that guy got that gig, I want that gig, you know. Yeah, that happens, of course, but it's not. It's a much more important thing taught to us that we pass this music down. Yeah, you check the ego at the door. Sure, you know, because there's someone who's better than you. You know, there's someone that can do something you can't do, and so check it. You know, and instead learn, and open yourself to be taught. That's hard to do a lot of times. You know, you have to be able to receive the lessons.
I've heard that process described many different ways over the years, interviewing musicians. Chubby Carrier, one of them. You talked about Grammy winners. Unbelievable guy.
Yeah, Chubby's great.
Just a super friendly guy. But with the roots music, that is, I would venture to say, more prevalent.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the title.
The elders,
roots.
Yeah, you know, like, the elders, after they kind of, I guess, validate or screen you a bit and realize that you're serious about it, then they start giving you pointers. And I mean, guys like that, girls too, have the benefit of gaining that sense of identity early on. It comes with more than just playing instruments. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's a way of life for some people, but it's also been proven to develop brains differently in young children, that can play or read music, whatever. But and the same with Cyril Neville, who I mentioned to you earlier. When I interviewed him, he told a story about an elder asking him, he said, do you want to just be a drummer, or do you want to learn to play the drums? And that was the test question right there,
Two
buddy.
very different
Because
things.
if he would have said the wrong thing, I just want to play the drums, he'd tell him, get out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, you want to be a drummer? You want to be in this lifestyle? Well, then let me bestow some knowledge upon you, And it's a gift. It's a gift, and you don't want to waste it,
Yeah. When we're talking about the other music cities like Austin and Nashville, people move there to be part of the music scene. Here, it is the culture.
Yeah.
It's the culture of South Louisiana. It's not just New Orleans. It's also Lafayette. It's the whole run. Anything under I-10 and I-12, and I mean North Louisiana has some stuff too, but it's the culture. It's not that other people don't move here. A lot of musicians move to New Orleans wanting to be in the New Orleans music scene.
Sure.
But you don't have it in the culture in those other places. You're not exposed to it basically from birth.
Right. It's synonymous here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's constant. It's omnipresent.
Sure.
And that's the biggest difference in the development of musicians and artists here.
Speaking on development, what comes of the band? What was the name of that first band, by the way? Did you say?
My first college band was called Hoppergrass.
Okay.
And then that developed into a band called Juice.
Okay.
And that was the band I had for 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and we first started around 95, I guess, maybe 96.
Yeah. That's highly unlikely, huh? 15 years. It's kind of like people saying, the first house you buy is not going to be the one that you die in. You're gonna change houses a few times. So,
well, there were different lineups. So
sure. Yeah, but I mean, y'all held on to that. So, what were some of the, I guess, strides or some moments earmarked looking back that were successes in your eyes? Because that's a hard thing to define, right? But in your eyes.
Well, my first band, we were kind of fortunate in Baton Rouge at the time. There weren't a whole lot. There's maybe one other band really that was messing around with the kind of genres we were messing around with. You're talking early 90s, so a lot of the bands around were, grunge and stuff like that, and we were kind of the outlier. We're a bunch of, hippies, pot-smoking, psychedelic taking hippies jamming out for 25 minutes,
Yeah.
And so when the Varsity Theater in Baton Rouge, whenever they had bands that were similar to those genres coming into the Varsity, we got a lot of those opening slots because there really wasn't anybody else.
Gotcha.
So we got to play with some really cool artists, and then I had a buddy of mine who was a concert promoter, and he was doing a show with Widespread Panic, and this is 1994, and he had us open for them, and I knew that they were big fans of the Meters, so I went to him and said, hey man, why don't you see if we can add, if you got it in your budget, let's add George Porter and Running Partners to this bill, because that'd be a really cool third band, and so that happened, and so that was really cool because Dave Schools from Widespread Panic was one of the guys when I first started playing bass that I really looked up to, and so was George, so I got to see two of my main guys on one gig,
Yeah.
And we did a lot of that stuff, there in Baton Rouge. We had a lot of those kind of opening band opportunities. And then we started touring around the college circuit in the Southeast.
Okay.
As quote unquote jam bands became a thing, became more popular, that the style, I always look at it as that, like, I think Dave Matthews is really who took it mainstream, and Blues Traveler too, when Blues Traveler had that big song. But that was a little later in the 90s, but it was gaining momentum, in the mid 90s. And so we'd get fraternity gigs and stuff like that, and we'd go play some clubs around, between here and, Atlanta or, maybe Memphis to the north, Ole Miss.
Hey, have you heard about NewOrleansMusicians.com? It's a place where articles, music videos, interviews, and streaming music from Louisiana musicians can be found. Fans can join free. Music business professionals can join free too. And Louisiana musicians can join for free as well. It's also the place where Louisiana bands go to network and get free promotion. We've definitely got plenty, like this band. Check them out.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, up in Oxford, Tuscaloosa, Starkville, Auburn,
Yeah. Was that just the natural next step coming from college to kind of base your backbone off of colleges?
Yeah. That's what most, it's pretty much, that's bands like Better Than Ezra. That's
sure.
That's where you're going to find a market, because that's the age that people are throwing those parties and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So, we had a lot of wins. We got a lot of good, cool opportunities to work with open for some really cool bands, and some of them of the generations older than us that were, just. And then when I relocated to New Orleans, like in the mid '90s, at one point, a friend of mine, his father's business or whatever, was one of the partners at Tipitina's, and they were trying to kind of expand what Tips did and make it more of like an every night kind of venue.
Okay.
And we were the house band for a couple of months. We play every Wednesday night at Tipitina's. This is probably 1996 maybe, or 97.
Okay. First house gig?
Yeah. As a matter, I never thought about that. Yeah. My first house gig
was
Tipitina's.
What a great place to be in. Yeah, what a great house.
What a good place to start, yeah. And then we started doing some consistent stuff at the Maple Leaf, somewhere in there, and then I had a good buddy who lives over by La Uza's, by the track, where everybody goes for Jazz Fest. And on that one block, there's a house that faces Garnered St. John, and there's La Uza's, and those are the only two buildings on that one block. Mm-hmm. And there's a garage that buttresses up to La Uza's. And my buddy lived there, and he would throw a Jazz Fest party, and we would play that. We did that for a couple of years, at least 2. And we had a booking agent from Colorado walk by one day and said, "I want to bring you guys out to Colorado."
Sweet.
And, we'd kind of heard that before, and usually it's bullshit, but this guy was for real.
Yeah.
And that was 1999, and that's what started my touring life.
Okay.
We'd done, because I don't really consider
regional tours.
Yeah, I don't really consider that touring.
Sure.
That's little weekend runs. But that guy, he was the booking agent for Leftover Salmon, which is now, they're become huge in the jam band scene. They're like one of the old, the kind of the godfathers of the scene. And he also booked Rebirth at the time.
Okay.
A Rebirth brass band. So we got on his roster and went with him for a couple of years, and he brought us out to Colorado, and then California, and we, Montana and Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We just started working the West.
Now, are you just rolling the dice initially with this guy? Because 99, we're not online looking at whatever we want to.
You are rolling
vet
the
somebody.
dice. Okay. It can go wrong, and it will.
Yeah. But y'all fared well.
We did all right, and we were building, and we were out on the road for, we did 4 or 5, about 4 years of pretty hard touring. We did, for about 3 years that we averaged 180 gigs a year.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're on the road 200 plus days. I mean, we were serious. Mm-hmm. And, what really set us back, and then we got on another booking agency, which was an international one that's still around today, and they book some of the New Orleans bands right now. What really kind of set us back was 9/11.
Okay.
A lot of the gigs we did were gigs that were like kind of like Wednesday at the Square.
Okay.
That they have here.
Yeah.
Or like in Covington, they have like Rockin' the Rails and
Sure.
these concert series. Mandeville's got one at the Trailhead.
Yeah.
A lot of those kind of concert series are funded by the Chamber of Commerce or the tourism board of whatever city they're in.
Sure.
And after 9/11, that money just, everyone started tightening the belts.
Yeah.
And we were booked months out, so it really didn't hit us till about 2003. Mm-hmm. And then we got to a point where, because those gigs, they're not like great paying gigs, but they're pretty good paying gigs in the sense that you can build tours around them.
Sure.
And then you're not just dependent on club gigs, which can go drastically bad.
Sure.
But if you got one of those gigs, especially if it's on a Wednesday or a Sunday or on an off night, you can book the Thursday, Friday, Saturdays in the clubs.
Gotcha.
There's a big like Jenga game you're playing all the time.
Certainly.
I still play it. And how do you make the math work? How do you make the itineraries work? How do you, a lot goes into it, and so when that citywide type funding kind of fell out, by 2003, we were, the financial side of it kind of flatlined. And we were also, because we'd been on the road for so long at that point, we were emotionally burned out, spiritually burned out, physically burned out, mentally burned out. I mean, it was like, we need a break.
Sure.
We need to take a step back, and touring puts great strains on relationships, and your relationships at home and your relationships with each other that you're on the road with. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And so we came back, and then we got off the road, and then in 2004, at some point, Maria, who owned the Bank Street Bar, we were talking about this off camera earlier.
Yeah.
Maria came to me, and I did not know her at all, and said, "Hey, our regular Wednesday night band's going out of town for the summer." And that was Soul Project, and they're still around. Great band.
Yep.
Love Soul Project. Soul Project, Christian, the leader of Soul Project, is from New Jersey originally. And so in the summertime, he'd go up and work New Jersey, go work the Jersey Shore and stuff like that. He'd go for a month or something. He still does it. Mm-hmm. And she asked if we could sub for him. And so we decided that it would be a good way for us to kind of have live rehearsals. We weren't on the road all the time, but, I was kind of writing some new music.
I was wondering what y'all were doing all that time, because that's a pressing tour schedule to be.
Yeah, well, we were still gigging. We would gig locally.
Okay.
And I mean, we still may go out for like a weekend run. We would do runs where we'd be out for 3 weeks, home for 5 days, out for 5 weeks.
Gotcha.
We were not doing that anymore. But we might do a 9-day run where we did 2 weekends. But we weren't 100% off the road, but not doing the grind. And we started doing Bank Street and to kind of develop new material, and we did that every week. And then Katrina hit, and we had just. When in that period after we got off the road hardcore, when we were still doing these little weekend runs, we recorded an album, a live record. We recorded we brought in a live recording truck and did that we did one at the Maple Leaf.
Cool.
We did one at a club in Asheville, North Carolina that we played a lot. We had a good audience up there. And we did one in Atlanta, and same thing. We pretty established at these venues.
Yeah.
And Chris Finney, who's how we met.
Right.
Finney brought the recording truck out, and he did the live recordings for us. He was the engineer.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and that album came out in, I think, either late May or June or July of 2005, and then Katrina hit.
Right.
And that album went nowhere. Dead in the water. And And that was really the album we were going to try to like use to get back on the road and start up again.
That's what I was about to say. That feeds your next door.
Yeah, but we all got dispersed, throughout the country.
Yeah.
We all had different damage to our homes. Yeah. The band didn't all get back in town full time for like another 2 years. We tried to do it. And we were at about 2009 is when it all kind of fizzled out.
Yeah.
And then I made the switch.
Your experience in kind of running this band as a business just seemed to build and build and build over time. How much, because you kind of touched on it, how much of the mechanics behind the scenes as far as coordinating these tours were you involved in? Because you had hired a company.
We had a booking agency.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you had a booking agency. What was your extent of involvement with the mechanics?
100%.
Okay. So you would brainstorm.
I was
with them
the liaison with the booking agency.
Okay.
And when it came to tour management stuff and booking hotels and I did, maybe not 100%, but 90.
Yeah.
I did the lion's share, and I still do.
For anybody out there listening, if you had any gems to drop on that experience, maybe some roads not to travel or something to that effect, maybe you could do that here.
Well, this is good advice. If you're a college band and you want to play like the Southeast Circuit, wherever LSU plays, go in on Friday night. Mm-hmm. Don't play Saturday night, because if the home team loses, your night's gonna suck.
Okay.
But go in Friday night.
Yeah.
And all the bar owners, and I'm sure it's still true, they would always tell us like they love it when LSU comes to town because LSU fans go out. They don't just stay in their RVs like most fans. Fans from other schools will get to the tailgate on Wednesday or Thursday, and they cook, and they don't leave their area. LSU, Louisiana people hit the bars, and they go out. They want to hear music. They want to dance. They want to party. So go book a Friday night.
Okay.
And we would book Friday nights where LSU was going to play, and then we book Saturday nights where the Saints were going to play.
Okay.
On Sundays, and so we played Saturday night, and then we played Charlotte one Saturday night, and we caught the Saints in Charlotte. And
okay.
We would try to do that.
Yeah. Cool.
The other thing is a lot of people talk about the cost of gas. Mm-hmm. Cost of gas is not going to kill your tour budget. You can figure out pretty close to the dollar on how much gas is going to cost you. Hotels is what kills your tour budget.
Okay.
So. It's a lot harder to do these days, but try to get hotels on the deals or have places you can stay, and because that will suck up your money in no time.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So what year are we at when it's Juice at that point, right? Finally decides to call it quits. What year are we talking now?
Around 2009 is where that's kind of when I put out when I started doing, quote unquote solo stuff. We still did some local stuff for maybe 2 more years. And then, it all kind of fell apart, and then Jamie passed away.
Okay.
And at that point by 2012 or so, I'd put out 2 solo records.
Okay.
And I had started kind of this project.
And were these kind of your foot out the door? How did you view these?
I don't know if I had a grand view at the time. I had a bunch of songs that I'd written that didn't fall under the funk category.
Okay.
And when I was my family ended up in Nashville after Hurricane Katrina, and Anders was up there.
All right.
And Anders and I, he produced one of the Juice records going back to 2000. So
okay.
We'd already worked together before. And, he and I he was the only guy I knew in Nashville. So we spent a fair amount of time after Katrina together. And, he said, hey, when the dust settles and we're back in New Orleans, you got these songs, let's make a record together. And so we did it. You know, it took us a minute, but we did it. I think we started recording in 2009, and it might have come out in 2010. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hazy, but I realized, you know, when I put the record out that oh shit, I got to go play these songs live now. I need a band, and so I started playing at Bank Street again. I did every Thursday night this time, and I kind of just invited a few friends, and it kind of became a musician hang.
Okay.
And as it had been with my previous band, you know. And it just kind of organically turned into a band, and I just kept writing songs and put out another record a couple years later. And I mean, at this point in the last 15 years, I've put out, I don't know, 6 albums.
Okay.
I write all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm never not writing.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And you had set down the bass for these 2 projects. What were you doing with these 2 projects?
I was on an acoustic guitar once I kind of, you know, quote unquote solo.
Okay.
And I added some bass to those records. I guess I'm the bass player on the first record. I don't even remember. I must have been.
Yeah.
I mean, we recorded our original tracks. It was me on acoustic, and Anders was on drums. He's on drums on that whole first solo record, and I don't think he's ever done that.
Yeah.
Before or since, and certainly not a whole album. And then we had a pedal steel guitar player was the third instrument. It was very spacey and atmospheric. And
Okay.
Dave Malone from the Radiators was in another part of the studio facility when we were making this record. He popped his head in and he goes, "That sounds like heroin music." It's all like weird shit. And that was pretty funny. But I would have put the bass on after.
Okay.
You know.
On stage, what are you doing?
On stage, the gig at Bank Street, bass players started showing up.
Okay.
And sometimes I'd play bass though. And when we first started it, I had a friend of mine who played guitar and bass.
Yeah.
And we'd switch up, you know.
So what do you do from there? You have material that you're putting out, and now you feel the itch to tour. You feel like compelled to tour because that's just the natural next step, or you know, what's
Not
going on
right
in your
away.
mind?
At that point, I was I was raising my kid.
Okay.
And so I always had said, you know, when he's ready to go to college, what I wanted to do was build this body of work of albums to where when he went to college, I'd have this body of work to go tour on.
Gotcha.
And I started going out in the summertime when he was about 16.
Okay.
And you know, we would do little runs, like maybe 2 weeks, and to Colorado, pretty much. And then since then, and now, you know, that's 12 years ago now, I base my summers out of Colorado, and I work all around the West.
I was going to say, it became a hub of sorts, huh?
It is.
And it's
completely.
is it because you were using the same guy to book, or?
No, that
No.
stopped.
That stopped. You just made a bunch of connections up there because that was ground zero, I guess.
Yeah, and we played Colorado a lot with my old band, so I still had a lot of those connections at clubs, and I got a lot of friends that live out there too.
Gotcha.
No, I just one by one, you know, I'd make the calls, and there is a booking agent out of Denver now that I work with, some, but I still book the vast majority of it.
Yeah.
Most of what I book now, I mean, I'm 54 years old and I've been doing this for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
So most of what I work with now are long-standing relationships.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know, I was talking to Chris Finney. He's going to produce my next record, and we had a pre-production meeting, and we were talking about, you know, what do you want to do with this record, kind of question, like, you know, what's the goal? And I said to Finney, you know, your goals with making albums, your reasons for making albums change over the years. You know, when you're young, you're in your first band, you know, you want to make a record, you know, and it's like the dream, you know, I have a record, I have a CD, you know.
Notching the belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you do that. That's the goal when you're in your first band. I also say about 90% of bands break up within a year after they make their first record.
Okay.
Because, they think that's going to change something.
Yeah.
And they have their big album release and all their friends and family come and they have a big night and you get like psyched into thinking that that's how all the gigs are going to go from now. They're not.
Yeah, okay.
They're not. They're going to end up being just as shitty.
That's another gem.
Yeah, and you tend to find out by the time you're 30 years old or so who the lifers are going to be, and because by that point some of the guys that you grow up with and in your college bands with are going to, hey, I got a degree in chemical engineering or something,
degrees,
and
marriages, children,
all that stuff. So that's your first record, and then maybe you made it past that and you're in another band with a bunch of guys who really want to make it, and so you might put out 3 or 4 records with that band, and you might hire a certain producer, you might change your sound a little bit because of what you think might hit. You're working more of like consciously working the commerce side of it. Like, how do we get a record deal? How do we move up the ladder, get to the next rung?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get a little older, and what I told Finney about this record, where I'm at now, it's like I don't have any of those hang-ups or reasons or desires or whatever the term is I'm looking for.
Preconceived notions.
Yeah. Now I'm leaving a body of work.
Sure.
I think if you include my college band, I think I've put out 11 albums.
Uh-huh.
So I've averaged putting out an album every 3 years or so for 30 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time. And I'm pretty consistent. And when I was 30, I didn't ever think about a body of work.
Yeah.
It was, let's make it.
Sure.
And even into my 40s, I don't know if I thought about that. I was putting out, okay, I'm doing this record because I want to work with this guy. I want to work with this producer. I want to maybe bucket list some things,
Mm-hmm.
And now I've basically achieved in music everything that 20-year-old me could have ever dreamed of,
As far as what?
I mean, I've played the main stage at Jazz Fest.
Okay.
I've played huge other places across the country. I've done gigs in Maui. I've done gigs in Alaska. I've probably done gigs in 40 different states, maybe more.
Yeah.
Music has served me in that I want to travel America. I've loved that since I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's played that role for me. And I got to record with Art Neville. I've recorded with George Porter. I've these things that seemed so incredibly out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do them.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't have other things I'd like to do, and I'd love to make more money. We all want that. But, I can look at my career from when I was a young guy to now and be like, man, you did it.
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah.
And so it's a different, it's just, I don't have any pressure on it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I really have anything to prove.
You
always feel like you have something to prove. You always want people to...
Yeah, that's a zen place to be in, though, because there are so many confusing metrics that people seem to value these days, and that's why I asked what your definition of success was. And when you said, you did what you wanted to do, and that's why I said, what exactly was that, to kind of get a read on what that is for you, what your barometer is when it comes to that. And one of the questions that I might have wanted to ask was, how do you continue something that you've done in the past for all these years in this day and age? Because within the last 2 decades, roughly, everything has become electronic, and you didn't start that way. But I think you've kind of thrown it in here and there, whether anybody or myself was listening or not. It was all built on relationships.
Yeah.
And to this day, that's still what carries you through. And I think maybe part of what your success is, or what you measure as a success, is the relationships that you've formed with certain people over the years. People that were influential to you, you know. So I mean, and that in and of itself is it's preserved you all this time. It's been a life preserver for you, but it is a measure of success to somebody that's in it for maybe altruistic reasons. Do you know what I'm saying? So I mean, that's kind of cool, you know.
Well, thank you. I mean, I just read this recently. It was a Facebook thing. There was a guy. He was in. I can't remember the name. It's like BR 539. They're like a rockabilly band.
Don't know.
Anyway, I might have got the name a little wrong, but they became fairly big. They did some. I mean, they might have like done some stuff with like Springsteen. I mean, they became pretty big.
Yeah.
In whatever their genre was. I don't know the band, but the guy made a Facebook post, and he was one of the original members of the band, and he was getting to a point. He was married. And him and his wife every 6 months would have a talk about like where we're at, where our relationship's at, where our marriage is at, where his career's at. Are things going in the right direction? Kind of talk, you know.
Yeah.
And he was starting to like kind of have some doubts, and you know, I mean, I want to have kids, you know, and you know, and all those things. And he ended up doing some gigs with the Black Crowes, and he's hanging out with Chris Robinson in L.A. or something. And Chris Robinson asked him, and part of they were having success, and you get that taste, and like the big success might be right around the corner. Don't quit yet, don't quit yet, don't quit yet.
Sure, yeah.
But while you're not quitting, you're putting off all these other things in life.
Yeah.
You know, you have there's life happening too.
Right.
That's finite, you know? And so he's going through this kind of existential question that every musician is going to go through at some point. And Chris Robinson says to him, well, are you doing this because you want the payoff, or are you doing it because you love it and it's your life?
Yeah.
Mind-blowing question, you know? And he ended up leaving the band and has 2 kids and something like that, and a happy marriage, and his life has been great. And
Sure.
I think the band still exists, and they're doing well, and no regrets, you know? So that's a big question to ask. And you know, I certainly have been through the ups and downs of divorce and rock bottom. I mean, starting over with a new instrument, with a new style of music at 38 years old, which is what I did, 38, 39 years old.
Yeah.
With nothing. I mean, coming off a divorce, and I mean, nothing. That's really hard to do. And you know, but for me, music, I don't know if I set out for it to be my life. And I say all the time, music is not who I am, it's what I do. There's more to me than music.
Sure.
But music has afforded me the ability to do all these things, to go see, you know, these relationships that I have received through music have opened up the whole country, and I mean the world to some extent to me.
Right.
When I was in Italy last summer, it was the first time I'd ever been there, first time I'd ever been to Europe. And some friends who I knew through music reached out and said, hey Dave, we live here, you know, so if you can stay extra, why don't you come check out the village that I live in the mountains in Italy.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and you know, my family has, you know, apartment you can stay in, you know, for free, you know. And like, I was able to stay an extra week in Italy, and I mean, one of the guys who played guitar in Flow Tribe, his family bought a vineyard there, and he's living there now, and he's like, come check out my vineyard, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
Like that would not have happened if it wasn't for music.
Yeah.
So you can throw in all the things that, you know, the hills and valleys, the depression you go through, the questioning yourself as an artist, as a person, you know, all of those things happen to everybody.
Yeah.
And it happened to everybody, period. But for me, it's created a life. And it's not necessarily what I set out to do, but that has been the result. And about, 10 or 12 years ago, I decided that, if you pay me enough money, I will go do whatever gig you tell me to do. I will go anywhere you want. You pay me enough, that's our job,
Sure.
But if I'm going to just kind of make the regular money, then I want to go to the places that I want to go to.
That's an interesting concept.
So I play Key West a couple times a year. I go base myself in the mountains in the summer, and I'm usually based somewhere around Telluride, Colorado, Southwest Colorado, which is arguably the most beautiful place in America. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I go to the Bay Area, northern and north to Humboldt, Northern California, which is gorgeous. I've been able to kind of establish some stuff in Hawaii. So now I couldn't have done this without the relationships ever.
Sure.
But I've been able to do it, and so now it's just like, I get to kind of, hey, next year, we did this a couple years ago. I was like, I want to go to Maine. I want to go to Acadia. I love the national parks. It's my water bottles, National Parks water bottle right here. And so, I was like, all right, I haven't been to that national park, so let's go book some gigs around there so we can go check out that national park.
Yeah.
And
you're not finding it. I mean, you the way you present it is that it comes off with ease. But
it's not easy.
Well, I wouldn't expect it to be, and that's why I point that out, because it's kind of ironic or misleading to some extent, not intentionally. But what are you doing to enable you? I mean, are we circling back to the relationships again, or are you talking about places you've never been? So what are you relying on when the relationship isn't there to be able to book yourself?
Well, at this point, the body of work. I can call. Cold calling is really difficult.
There's a lot of people out there facing this, and that's why it's kind of feeding you that question.
I try to never cold call. Yeah. I try to okay, I've got a musician friend who knows the guy at that venue or something like that. You need that foot in the door, kind of.
Sure.
I've got a pretty lengthy press kit at this point. I'm a professional at what I do, and so
sure.
It's not really, you're not taking a risk on me as far as is this band going to come in and just suck? That's not going to happen.
Right.
I've got the right gear and the right, this isn't
sure.
amateur stuff, and I mean, nobody my age doing this amateur, but it's the relationships, and it's that. People say, they'll comment sometimes on Facebook, oh, you're so lucky to get to do this. It's not luck. It's very focused, and it's focusing on maintaining these relationships. It's, okay, what do I want to do this summer? And then, I start booking Colorado when I'm driving home from Colorado.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
A year out.
Yeah.
And you can ask them. There's a lot of guys up there that I bug the shit out of them. And they know I'm going to be bugging them next year and the year after that. And they know I'm calling. And some years it works and some years it doesn't. Same with here. Some years I play Jazz Fest, some years I don't. And you just, the hardest thing in this line of work is navigating the high highs and the low lows. That's so important. And and I've talked about that with guys that are very successful. You're gonna have years where it's down. It's gonna happen, you know. And I don't even want to act like that. That's not like that's that much different than any line of work, or
sure,
anybody. But
to advise others to keep a level head and expect it is solid advice.
Right.
Yeah.
Colonel Bruce Hampton, which is a very influential guy in the jam band scene, one of the guitar players I played with Bruce and lived with him for a long time. Bruce would say, he'd be like, well, you're going to get a flat tire. That was his way of saying, your shit's going to go wrong. Not you not you might get a flat tire.
Yeah.
You're going to get a flat tire.
Right.
And so, if you're the type of person that's not adaptable, don't get in this line of work. I mean, do not do it. To get a 9-to-5
Don't
job.
look for stability.
Yeah, do that, I mean, I guess there's a level of it. The radiators have that saying, too stupid to stop. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm that.
Well, what I wanted to, I didn't know how to phrase it exactly, but, kudos to you to be able to stop and appreciate the things that this life has afforded you. But to some degree, and I just want to point out to some degree, your ambitions are fed or expressed through this line of work as well. Like you get some sort of dopamine hit booking the next gig or completing the next gig. It might not have been a life that you chose, but in some ways it suits you, like you did to some degree. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it's sort of, it's hitting a few tumblers on that lock in your life and opening things up for you, I
mean, there is a very tangible way it is the life I chose, and that is that when I was going to become a father, I was 25.
Okay.
So pretty relatively young.
That was, yeah.
I had to make a choice at that point. Do I want to continue on music, or do I want to go back to school and go to law school or something and take that route? Because that's probably what I would have done, or gone become a professor or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a business guy. I wouldn't have probably gone into that corporate world, but when I was young, I mentioned it briefly before, I traveled with my parents. Like when I was 8 years old, we drove from New Orleans to Los Angeles, and my grandmother had passed away. And then I have a very, very clear memory of when you're driving back on, I guess it's I-40, and you kind of come around the mountain if you're heading from west to east.
Yeah.
In Albuquerque, the whole city of Albuquerque, if you see it at night, it's below you, and the lights just go on forever, and it just scorched my mind. I mean, it was just like, that is so cool,
Yeah.
And then I was a Boy Scout, and I hiked the Grand Canyon, and there's a big scout ranch in New Mexico. We spent 3 weeks hiking in the mountains of New Mexico, and then my dad took sabbatical, and we moved to Rhode Island for a couple of years, and I was in junior high. So I moved around a fair amount, and my dad taught in Utah the summer between 4th and 5th grade, and I went and lived with my dad in a dorm in the university up in Utah. And so I had a fair amount of traveling America as a kid.
Uh-huh.
And my grandparents lived in D.C., my mom's parents, and my grandfather was a colonel in the military, was nominated for general, and on my mom's side of the family, we came over on the Mayflower. So it's like I have this real sense of America.
Okay.
That's just in me.
Yeah.
It's my heritage, it's my lineage, it's something that it's part of my DNA. And so when I was posed with that issue of, do I continue to do music, or do I go into more respectable line of work, I chose music because it gave me the opportunity to get at worst to at least pay for me to travel,
sure,
to drive the highways of America. I've been to all 50 states. I love to drive America. Mm-hmm. There's something very different when you drive the highways than if you fly somewhere.
Sure.
And in our line of work, like if you play a Friday or Saturday night in Wichita Falls, Texas,
mm-hmm.
Or Lincoln, Nebraska, or smaller towns than those, you really get a sense of like these places, and like, because there's nothing to do on Friday nights. Everyone's going to the bar to see the band play.
Sure.
That's what it was like in Mandeville growing up.
Yeah.
Still is. And and so you get a sense, you're almost like a politician, coming in, shaking hands,
sure,
kissing babies,
bringing the good word.
Yeah, you're bringing some joy to these people. And so that was a real consideration for me, mm-hmm. my desire to explore America.
Yeah.
And
it's fantastic.
That's just, But I've told some of the younger guys I play with, and I wish I had been told this when I was younger. It seems obvious, but, every musician has to figure out what works for them.
Yeah.
Some guys don't want to go on the road like I do. Some guys want to play Bourbon Street because you might play for 8 or 10 hours a day, but you might make $500 a day. And,
Yeah.
And you got to play whatever the hit songs are of the day. Like, I have no desire to do that.
Yeah.
Like, zero. I don't, but I respect it.
Sure.
And
sure.
like we were talking about cover bands earlier, if any way you can make a living playing music, and that's what you want to do, then, man, I respect the hell out of it.
Sure.
It's a hard line to take, and but it's better than digging a ditch.
Dude, it comes to mind, bassist, New Orleans bassist, Robert Snow. And what did he say? He was in Algiers somewhere on top of roof, doing roofing work, sweating his butt off, 18, 19 years old, whatever it was. And he's looking across the river at New Orleans, and I think he had just, I don't know what made it occur to him. At some point in that story, he fell off the roof. But what occurred to him is he's up there sweating and just hating what he's doing, and he's looking across the river into the CBD saying, man, my daddy's over there playing music and getting paid, And then just to make, I guess, insult to injury, falls off the roof at some point. But, it's better than digging a ditch is what kind of brought that to mind, But, I mean, it's ballsy to choose that path, and it's risky, and it's not stable, especially when you're facing being a father at a young age as well. So, I mean, you rolled a lot of dice, but, it's kept you going.
I mean,
so
you definitely
far,
have to have that kind of personality.
Yeah.
That you'll take those chances, and, you're okay with living with a very fluctuating income.
Sure.
And it's hard. I mean, it's the biggest thing that takes people out of music.
Sure.
Or any kind of arts, really.
Yeah.
And
you're about to do it again now. Tell us about where you're going now, what you're about to do now that I caught you right before.
I go to Florida on Thursday for four gigs, and then I come home and I'm doing 3 gigs next week here around town, and then I leave for Colorado, and I'll be out west. I'm booked through August 30th right now.
And what's on the bill? Is it you solo or?
The first 10 days or so in Colorado, it's my whole band.
Okay.
So, and that's a logistical nightmare.
So
some of the guys are flying in, some of the guys are driving in. We're all, you got to put all that together. You got to make sure we have lodging everywhere and the money works and all those things. And then they leave. The guitar player's going to hang out a little longer for week or two more. Yeah. And I've got some more gigs when they leave. But like one of the main gigs I have, it's some people in Colorado that want me specifically to play with some other guys from Colorado.
Okay.
And like I was telling you off camera, I've got guys in Colorado I work with. I've got guys in the Carolinas I work with. I've got guys in Florida that I work with. So I've got guys in California that I work with. It's incredibly expensive to have a band on the road, especially now. There are no more $60 hotels. That's gone.
The motor lodges don't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's gone. And so the only time we can really do the full band is when we have some sort of high-paying gig that's kind of anchors. They're called anchor dates. That anchors the tour. That, or you have a series of like those gigs I was talking to you, like the Wednesday at the Square type gigs.
Sure.
And that's what we have on this. We're doing a lot of those kind of music series gigs.
Gotcha.
And so, and part of the pitch was like, hey, I'm going to have my A-team New Orleans band out here with me. So if you want to ever get us now.
Yeah.
And so, other than that, I'll stick around and I'll do some stuff with my Colorado guys, and I can do, one of the things I can do, and I would suggest this to younger musicians, is write your own music. And if you can play solo gigs, that's huge. So I can do solo gigs while I'm out there. I can pick up gigs while I'm there, And so I do that. I'm in Colorado till mid-July, or till about the 25th of July, and then I'm going to Oregon and California. And I'm going to be doing about 2.5-3 weeks in California, and one of the guys who's originally from here, guitar players, he used to live out there. He's going to fly out and meet me out there, and we're going to do gigs together, some duo. And my old college roommate lives out there. He's a drummer.
Cool.
The original drummer from Juice.
Yeah.
And so, we may hook up with him. And then I go back to Colorado and do some more gigs. And one of the coolest gigs I'm doing this summer, it's called the Durango Blues Train.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's, if you're in Durango, Colorado, every day there's a train, it's a tourist thing, that goes to Silverton, Colorado, which Silverton had the biggest silver mine in America back in the day. And this train is a narrow gauge railway. It's a mining train.
Okay.
And this is the train that would run the miners to and from the city to the mine, basically.
Gotcha.
And it has 6 cars, and they put 6 different musicians in each car.
Ah, cool.
They do it once a year.
Yeah.
And so, and when you talk about Americana music,
yeah.
What's more Americana than playing a mining train? Going to a town called Silverton.
Right.
It's about as Americana as it gets.
Yeah.
So, me and my buddy Thomas Johnson, and Thomas is a great guitar player. He's got a band called Killer Whale, and Thomas grew up in Baton Rouge, lived in New Orleans for a long time, and he's not currently living here now, but roots here.
Yeah.
And Thomas is doing that run with me, and then I'm not really sure what I'm going to do in September yet, but at some point in September I'll come home, and then I kind of have a full slate starting up in October, and work till the holidays.
Man,
yeah,
it's a lot. Name your band, tell them where they can find the stuff, and what you got coming up next.
Dave Jordan. My band is called the Neighborhood Improvement Association, or the NIA.
Okay.
I do a trio too that we call Almost Acoustic.
All right.
And the band could be a 10-piece. If you want me to add horns, I'll add horns. Whatever.
On streaming, because I told you when I first got here, I found you by your name.
On streaming, on iTunes, all those things. It's Dave Jordan.
Okay.
There's another David Jordan out of England. That's not me.
You popped up first.
All right, good. I'm number one.
There we go.
And then my next stuff around here, really, I don't know when this is airing, but you probably won't see me around here again until October.
Yeah. I was speaking more on the next project because you had mentioned you fed me that off camera. Really.
I've talked with our buddy Chris Finney, and Chris
Sound
and I
from Space Studio.
Mm-hmm. And Chris and I, he goes back to the first Juice album we made. He helped on that. Mm-hmm. He had a studio called Magazine Sounds. He was involved in that. That was like 98, maybe.
Yep.
So he and I are good friends. We've worked together many times over the years, but we haven't worked together in quite a few years. For about 15 years, he was producing Dr. John and winning Grammys and doing all that little stuff.
Right, all those little things,
And Finney and I are going to make a record together. And Mike Mayhew is going to work with us on that record too. They're going to produce and engineer it for me. And I'm still kind of formulating kind of what I want that record to be. Mm-hmm. I've got 3 or 4 album ideas right now that I'm kicking around. One of them, at some point, I will probably do a record of all John Prine songs.
Okay.
I'm a huge John Prine fan, but when the band does it, we kind of make them more rock and roll than John fingerpicks acoustic guitar a lot. That's kind of his deal. So put kind of a band spin on John's music.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that someday. I don't know when, and maybe have like different guests on different songs kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's one, but the next record I'm thinking, part of me wants to do, I've spent a fair amount of time in Hawaii the last few years because I had a friend that was living there. And I kind of want to, Hawaiian music's not reggae music, but it's island music. Mm-hmm. It's kind of breezy, and it uses a lot of like congas and stuff, hand percussion.
Sure.
And I'm interested in maybe doing a record with that kind of instrumentation and that kind of laid back feel.
Yeah.
Good shirt like this feel.
Sure.
And but using New Orleans rhythms.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, and instead of reggae rhythms, but New Orleans rhythms are, Caribbean rhythms a lot anyway. It's not really a huge stretch, but I mean, it's not going to be a white boy reggae album. I'll tell you, it's not that. It won't be
Okay.
that, you know. But just stuff like that, you know. One of my son was like, "You mean you're going to make something sound like Jack Johnson or something?" Like, I never thought about it, but maybe so. And I've never even really listened to Jack Johnson, but I mean, maybe so. Maybe it comes out sounding something like that. But something real song and lyric oriented, and you know.
Sure.
And then, you know, or we also might just get the whole band in there and do a rock and roll record. You know, I'm not really sure.
It sounds
yet.
like you want to go to Hawaii either way. So
I do want to go back to Hawaii.
We just know it's going to be from Hawaii and not 311.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Well, thanks for your time. Man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
All right.
All right.
Just one more band before you go.
Quite simply, I want it to be the source for music in Louisiana. If I can bring everybody to the table, then I can help a ton of people.